This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 93 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. I'm Gordon Brewer. So glad you found the podcast. So glad you've tuned in. So glad you're listening to this episode. It's hard to believe I'm already at 93 already. I'm just still just kind of blown away by what the podcast is doing and the folks that it's reaching and just the number of downloads and the feedback I get from people. And I am so thankful to you and so grateful to you for joining in and for tuning in each week. If this is your first time listening, welcome. And I hope you'll take time to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And take the time to go back and listen to some of the older episodes of the podcast. There's a lot of great stuff there, a lot of great guests that I've had along the way. And it's just, I'm just so, needless to say, I'm just a bit giddy about the whole thing. It's just really been wonderful to meet the people that I continue to meet and continue to interact with through this whole medium. And I'm just so grateful and just humbled by the whole experience. You know, I've got a great guest lined up for today for this episode, Chantal. And Holly is a person that reached out to me and was interested in coming on the podcast. And so we started the conversation, and Holly's kind of niche or superpower is just being able to help therapists and those of us in the service providing professions get our message out there in a clear way that really resonates with our potential and ideal clients. So I'm excited to have Holly on the podcast today. You know, one of the things about, speaking of the podcast, there was kind of a neat surprise I had this week. Got an email just kind of randomly, and it was from the folks over at a website called Software Pundit. And quite frankly, I'd never heard of it before. But anyway, they let me know that the Practice of Therapy was recently published on their list of the best blogs and podcasts focused specifically on running private practices in the mental health industry. And so they featured little old Practice of Therapy on that blog post. And I'll be sure and put a link to that here in the show notes or the show summary so you can take a look at that blog post. But yeah, I was just grateful for them for making that, featuring us and noticing us. And that, I guess what that tells me is that the word is getting out about the podcast. And again, I'm just blown away by that and grateful for that. I wasn't the only one they featured, though. There, I was in great company there. I had, also in that blog post, my friend Joe Sanok from over at the Practice of the Practice, and Allison Pereira from Abundance Practice. Kate and Katie over at Private Practice Startup were also featured in there. And then also Tamara Suttle, and forgive me, Tamara, I can't remember the title of your blog. But anyway, I was in great company there. They're all people that I admire and people that I'm our colleagues and friends, and we're all friends. And so that is just such a great thing. And so anyway, take a look at that blog post. It's in there. And again, it's the Software Pundit is the name of the blog and the resource there. It looks like, from what I did some snooping there, what they do is they review resources for across just kind of the whole healthcare industry space for, dentists and chiropractors and healthcare providers and all that sort of thing. So it's a great resource. And so I'm going to be sure and include that, like I said, in the show summary so you can check it out. And speaking of resources and things coming up, I guess two things I want to mention here before we get to Holly is, number one is that I'm starting my next cohort or my next group for a mastermind group. And just had a good time with this last cohort. In last week's podcast episode, David Sturgis had joined me for that interview, and David was one of the last participants in that mastermind group with me. But I'm starting another one, and this one is going to be geared really mainly for those for people that are starting up in private practices, those that are getting started and working at growing and pulling everything together, but also those folks that might be figuring out what's next. Maybe you've gotten started at in your private practice and really have kind of hit a plateau and want to try to figure out what's next. But anyway, it's gonna start in September, and again, there'll be links in the show summary for that, but you can get to that if you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com/mastermind. And if you'll just go in there and apply, you'll see a button there to apply for the mastermind. And what that will do is just start the conversation for us. I'll look at your application and read what you write there, and we'll figure out together if this is an appropriate fit for you. I've really kind of priced this mastermind group at a price that's hopefully affordable to people. It's only going to be $78 a month. We'll meet 2 times a month for 4 months. So it's like a 4-month obligation, but in that you'll get a total of 8 sessions with me, and along with conversations with people that are hopefully at similar places in their practices. So I would invite you to join that. I know every time I've been a part of a mastermind group, it's just really helped me grow quite a bit in my practice, and I learned so much. I learned from the folks that are in my mastermind groups as well. So again, I want to invite you to join that mastermind group and be a part of that group. It's only going to be limited to about 6 to 8 people, and do that on purpose, but so that way we can have the intensity we need to do it's really group coaching and group mentoring just around this whole private practice space. So go check that out, practiceoftherapy.com/mastermind. And the other thing I want to mention real quickly here is that my friend Julie Harris, she was on a previous episode of the podcast. She and I are going to be doing a webinar in September. And let's see, let me pull up my calendar real quick here and see what that date is. I believe we're going to be doing that on September the 13th. And again, it's going to be another webinar on just the whole financial side of private practice. And Julie has also collaborated with me to add some bonus content, or really kind of a bonus or an upgraded version of the Money Matters in Private Practice course. And so to find out more about that, you can go over to practiceoftherapy.com/money matters and find out about that online course, and it just will walk you through the whole financial side of private practice. And Julie really gets into more detail, and so I'm really excited to have kind of this bonus version of the course, and it's just I think it'll be a good return on your investment. So you can check that out at practiceoftherapy.com/money matters, and keep your eyes and ears out for more details on the upcoming free webinar that's going to be on September the 13th. We're still working out the name of the webinar, but it is going to be on this topic of the financial side of private practice. So anyway, just wanted to commend that to you. So today, again, I've got Holly Chantal, who's joining me for the podcast. So without further ado, here's my new friend, Holly Chantal. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Practice of Therapy podcast. And I'm so happy to have with me today Holly Chantal. And Holly is another one of those people I met online and kind of got to know through email, and we've been back and forth. And what Holly is really kind of known for is that she helps visionary service professionals bring their brand, business, and business model and marketing systems into alignment with their next stage of growth. And so I really love that vision, Holly. So go welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So tell folks, as I usually start out with everyone, tell folks more about yourself and just kind of how you've landed where you've landed in this whole space.
Yeah, so I've been in the online marketing space for 10 years, and I really love helping businesses that are offline figure out their online marketing, because I feel like there's a lot of really great service providers and therapists that have can create a really, really big impact, but they're really limited to kind of like their immediate vicinity when they have so much more to offer. So I actually got my start in website design. And what I found was that when clients would come to me, they didn't really know what to ask for. And when I asked them questions like, okay, who is your target audience and what offers are we selling? Those questions like kind of stumped them because they hadn't really thought about their services that way. Because usually when you have a website, it's almost like a brochure. Like these are the kinds of things that you would come to me for. These are the problems I solve. And especially in therapy, you're kind of, limited to, the basic depression, anxiety, like the times, the transitions in people's lives and that kind of thing. But it doesn't really talk about the value that you provide. It's more of a checklist of, if you have any of these symptoms, then, I can help you, or I'm certified to help you. And what the way I see online marketing is so much more. It's really an opportunity to share a message. It's really an opportunity to educate your audience and do more work that is really fulfilling for you. So those were the kinds of things that my clients were having challenges with communicating. And so through, working on a couple hundred websites, I developed a system that I could take my clients through beforehand, before they started marketing themselves online. They got them really clear on where they stood in the marketplace and how to communicate that message that they had and how they really help people so that they can attract people based on a good fit model versus, just having people call it for pricing and, only comparing service providers based on their pricing model and, whether or not they had patient availability and just the very basic things that, don't really matter to your work, if that makes sense.
Right.
So that's really where I'm focusing now is getting those pieces in place, being able to communicate your value, being able to shift into a business model where you're not just trading time for money, and starting to incorporate more online marketing strategies to complement the stuff that you're already doing offline.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that I keep learning as well with this whole marketing thing. And then I think, one of the things people have heard from me before is just on your about page on your website is really not about you. It really shouldn't be about you specifically. I mean, yeah, probably down farther on the about page, you want to put your credentials and that sort of thing. But most people really don't care about that. They just really want to be able to connect with you and know how you're going to help and really kind of solve their problems.
Yeah. And that's a tricky thing because I get that question a lot, is my about page about me or is it about my audience? And that's the tricky thing is that it is about you and your audience. You're not necessarily giving the play-by-play of your history.
Right.
You're also not necessarily describing your client because that has, that's better. That will better serve you elsewhere. On your about page, people really, what they are really looking for is, do I like you? Do I agree with the way that you do things?
Mm-hmm.
And do I feel like you can really solve my problem? So oftentimes that is telling a little bit of story. What I like to do on about pages is really share your core philosophies,
Mm-hmm.
for, how you serve your clients. So if you have kind of certain quirks that you do with your clients, the way you schedule your sessions, or maybe you ask, you have a certain structure that you use for your sessions, or you ask kind of strange questions, or like there's something that's unusual about what you do. I like to put that on the about page, and it's really sharing your beliefs and your point of view. And that's where people really decide, like, do I agree with this person? Do I like them? Do I like their approach? Instead of just like the really more functional, logical reasons that they should be working with you. Now we're kind of talking more of like belief systems and the more intangible things.
Right. And I love that. I love that approach, and that it's really more about connecting with people and being able to really represent who you are. And the other thing too is that if people connect with you, you're probably going to enjoy working with those clients more than folks that you really just might not be a good fit for you. So, yeah. So I'm curious, Holly, maybe give us a kind of a thumbnail or an outline of kind of the process you use in working with your clients to help them come up with a message and a vision and all of that.
Well, I feel like for therapists especially, it's really challenging because you are called to help. Like, you're in this profession for a reason, and you feel like you really should serve everyone. And so what I do with my clients is kind of work through some of those. I mean, really it's some mindset things on how you view yourself and how you view the work that you're doing, and just getting really clear on why you embarked on this profession, what intrigues you about your work, like what kind of clients just really like kind of nerd out about and get excited about. And what if you were to serve more of those clients instead of, it doesn't mean you can't accept others if they come to you, but which kind of clients do you really want to attract? Is there certain, the word is completely escaping me. But is there certain, like, it probably seems like really dumb. Like, like if you really like certain mental illnesses than other, like I know some people like really, really love working with people that have identity disorders. Like, it just really intrigues them and kind of nerd out about it. And that's like what they just love working with those people. And others, have a history of anxiety or depression. And they just feel really deeply called to help other people on that journey so that they can get to the same place that they are.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, like, they're really personal interests. And if you think about it, when you're looking for help, you want to be working with the person that like is really jazzed about the problem you have, like that is good at that thing. And not the person that's like a real generalist and, just kind of another, you're punching the clock and that kind of thing, but someone that really is passionate about you, it's going to be more satisfying work, and they're going to be getting better results. So that's kind of where we start, is getting really clear on what is your passion, your calling, and then, what is the magic that you have, and working with clients, because it goes far beyond what you learned in school. Like, after you've worked with clients for a while, that there's certain things that you do that your colleagues don't. And there might even be things that you kind of wonder sometimes, like, is this actually, is there something wrong with me? Or, maybe, other people are doing better than I am. But when actually that little piece of magic you have really makes a difference for your clients. And when we can uncover that, we can really start to create messaging that positions you a little bit differently in relation to, your colleagues / competition in a way. But really, attracting more of those really awesome clients.
Yeah. Well, what I love about that is it's a real genuine approach, in that you're not only being true to yourself, but you're also being true to your clients, and that you're really, and again, people have heard this from me a lot, is just understanding your why, of really understanding why it is that you're doing what you're doing, why you've chosen this profession, all of that sort of thing. And we do a better job when we're doing stuff that we're passionate about anyway. So I mean,
Right.
it's just yeah. So I love that approach. So yeah, so you kind of go through kind of a visioning process, really asking those kind of hard questions about, okay, why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you use the approach that you use? What are you passionate about? All of that. How do you take that and then convert it into a message?
Well, we actually look at all of those things from a lot of different angles. And because oftentimes, just asking those straight questions, people, you don't know how to answer them. Like if I ask, what makes you different, or why do you do things the way you do, you might not even be able to recognize it because you're so close to it. So how we come up with the messaging is actually what I call sideways questions.
Uh-huh.
So instead of asking you directly what makes you different, we look at your colleagues and your competition. And just so you guys know, I define competition as whatever other options someone has other than working with you. So it's not that we're trying to win or pit ourselves against anyone else, but do it yourself is quote unquote your competition. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we talk about, what are the pros and cons of doing it yourself, for example, and what are the beliefs that a client might have about doing it themselves, or what are the beliefs and philosophies that your colleague has, and how do they differ from yours? And why does that matter to the client? How does it create different results? Are there different clients that would benefit from that versus doing things your way? So we use a lot of comparison. This is like just one of the angles that we take. We do a lot of comparison just to get language. And when you do it that way, it comes across very conversational. Like you can actually have an intelligent conversation about it, not that we're going to use, like we're going to pit you against anyone. I just want to be very clear. Like, we're not talking anyone down or saying, that person does it this way and I do it that way, and this is why I'm better. But really, once you know how you differ, you can just talk about yourself and your own beliefs, and it kind of brings validation to them that sharing these things really does matter. People do want to hear about your story and your philosophies and the experiences that you've had, and why you hold certain values, and that then you find that they create certain results for your clients. And you can share those things in so from there we kind of pull out those different snippets, and then we share those things in your marketing. So I might give you 3 to 5 topics to talk about, either in a Facebook Live or on your blog, or in your newsletter that goes out to clients. And in these things, you're sharing little tidbits about your modalities and why they work, why they don't work, who would they be for? Like, so you're sharing all the things that we uncovered, just in different formats.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of creates like a multi-pronged approach, so that people are kind of interacting with your message in different ways, instead of it, sometimes people worry about marketing being really salesy. Like, what we're really doing here is kind of putting a message out there, and creating awareness, more so than trying to sell anything.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think that's again, that's a common theme I hear from people, is that they don't want to come across as salesy, but it's really, again, just what we do in the therapy room anyway, is just connect and join with people. And so it's being able to create a message that does that for you in your advertising, your marketing, how you're getting your name out there, that sort of thing. The other thing that I know you and I talked about before we started recording, Holly, was just the other thing that you've been helping people with is really kind of thinking about how they, for lack of a better term, package what they have to offer and how they present that to people. You want to say more about that?
Yeah, so I find that in therapy practices, the typical norm is kind of an open-ended engagement. It's a session-to-session basis. When you start working with a patient or a client, like, they know, like, they have an expectation of how long they might be working, might be 6 to 8 weeks or whatnot, but it might extend beyond that. The challenge is for them is, and there's some stigmas that come along with therapy, like, you're just going to rehash my past. And, we're just going to be talking. We don't really have a point to each session. Like, it's kind of like, I'm going to bring in like whatever's going on and we're just going to talk about it. And while there's a lot more to it than that, there's a lot of, people coming to you that have had bad experiences in the past with therapy. Obviously, they've probably had other bad experiences too, but like with therapy. So there's like a stigma that they have about even coming. And it's when you can create packages, you're kind of giving them a little bit more of a roadmap of what this experience is going to be like. They kind of see how their progress is going to be measured. They see that every session has a purpose and a point, and you're kind of guiding them along, not completely directing, every single session, because you do want it to be, patient or client directed. But it gives them something a little bit more tangible to hang on to. Mm-hmm. And when you can do that, it's easier to sell longer term engagements, depending on your business model. Like if you're really, in business for yourself, not accepting insurance and that kind of thing, you might be able to create higher level, higher end packages, and, start kind of getting out of that time for money model.
Right. Yeah, a metaphor just kind of came to me as we were thinking about this. I was just thinking about, I don't know why I was thinking about this, because I don't have any painting I need to do, but I was just thinking about if I were to go to paint a room, there would be a lot of things that I would need in order to do that, other than just buying the paint. And so it probably, what would be real attractive to me would be able to know that I maybe the paint store had like a package where they included the brushes and rollers and the tape and all that kind of stuff that you need for painting. And I think being able to just in our business, being able to kind of give people a vision of the desired outcome is something that I would think would be a very big part of the messaging. In other words, if I'm depressed now, what's it going to look like for me after I come to therapy?
Right. And it's also like, to go along your painting example, if you were to be talking to a contractor and you were going to ask them, how much is it going to be to paint my house? And they say, well, I charge, $100 an hour. Okay, well, how long is it going to take? It's going to take as long as it takes. Like, that creates a lot of anxiety and discomfort of, okay, how much is this actually going to cost me? Mm-hmm. Because you don't know. But if you can package, okay, well, I'm going to do this house in, it'll take this many weeks and it's going to cost this much, plus or minus whatever if we run into trouble. But I'll let you know those things ahead of time. Like those kinds of things make those packaging things in that way just makes it more comfortable. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of assuming that kind of as I'm talking about this, people are probably wondering why, like how?
Yes.
Like we're not talking about, okay, we're going to do like a 3-session package. What we're talking about is really creating a package around an outcome. So this is where specializing is really helpful. So if you've decided what kind of patients you want to see, what kind of the work that you want to do, and the modalities that you're using, whether it's what you learned in school or if you've taken post-grad certifications, or you've just learned other modalities that you want to bring into your practice, maybe outs that are a little bit more alternative, you decide, you kind of look at point A when most clients are coming to you, like what are the problems they're having, what are the triggers that are saying like, okay, I need help right now. And then what is the outcome that they want? Mm-hmm. And you kind of think about all the different clients you've seen, like what are the patterns of kind of the trajectory that you take? So like, are you starting with, looking at past and getting history? So you can kind of get the lay of the land. And then what happens? Like, do we start with, looking at this area of their life, and then we move on to this area of their life? Or do we start with, figuring out what their triggers are? Like, so kind of what the process looks like. And if you can lay that out in a very big picture way, it's not like a session 1, session 2, session 3 thing, but just kind of a big picture arc or trajectory that they can expect. And about how long it takes to get through that. So let's say it's 3 months, let's say it's 6 months. It doesn't mean you don't have any wiggle room, but you can kind of give an estimate of, okay, we're going to, this will probably be about a 3-month thing. This is the price. These are the basic topics we're going to cover. You might even include and say that, between sessions, I'm going to give you homework to work on, or things that you can kind of bring back in and we can talk about, so they aren't feeling like they always have to come up with something to talk about, because they might not know what to talk about. They might, cancel their session. But you're kind of giving that, I'm going to give you assignments in between so you can be doing things at home. So, you're not only getting benefit from the session, like in the actual session. You might have online trainings that you've put on your website that they can use as supplemental material, books that you want them to read. If like I said, you might be bringing alternative things in, like essential oils or, different tools that you might use. All of those things become a part of this package. And it just gives them that security of knowing, okay, this person has a plan. They deeply understand what I'm going through. They've dealt with it before. Clearly, they know what they're doing. And they will choose you 10 times out of 10 over someone else that is, just a general practitioner, that, sessions are $125 and, we work until it gets done.
Right. Yeah, that you've got my wheels turning and thinking about this, because, the weight loss industry does exactly that. They kind of outline for people how they're going to help them lose the weight, and they present a program, and that, this is step 1, this is step 2, all of that. And it seems to have some success with that. To put it in clinical language, really, though, it's really taking a very collaborative approach with your client around treatment planning. But you can kind of outline for them, this is how I do treatment, and I'm going to get your input on this. That would probably be much more appealing than, oh, well, I'm just going to go to a therapist because I'm having this problem.
Yeah. And I know a big challenge, especially when someone, is kind of assigned into therapy, or like they don't really have a choice, is that getting buy-in is difficult. But when you can take this kind of collaborative approach, and you get buy-in much easier. Like, they see what the point is, because that's often what it is. Like, they don't know why they're doing this.
Right.
And if you can kind of show them, this is what we're going to do, and this is why, which also should be part of your messaging, like why you do things the way you do, you get buy-in much more quickly.
Yeah. So it sounds like kind of your process then, Holly, is to first of all just do some visioning. I get some real clarity around, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing, and what do I want to do with all of this? And then secondly is just being able to, like you said, package this in such a way that makes it attractive to potential clients. Yeah.
Yes.
So what else is part of the steps that you found been helpful for helping people really kind of get their message and really attract their ideal clients?
So I think just those two things will be huge for you, because then you are really clear on what you have to say in your marketing, and who you're looking to attract. And from there, like, let's say you're going to do an online market, like content marketing strategy. If you know your ideal client really well, and you know what your package looks like, so you know what the process you're going to take people through, you can take topics from each of those steps and write about them or do a Facebook Live about them, and just sharing information about why doing this step is really, really important, why this is something that so many people are missing that have this particular illness or this particular, the word is still modality. That's not what it is. The thing that's bothering them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah. So
you know what? That word is going to come to me right after we get off of this.
Yeah. Right.
Why wasn't I even thinking that?
Diagnosis, is that what you're thinking of, or?
No.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I'll figure it out and I'll email it to you.
The problem. Yeah, the problem they're having. Yeah. So, well, good. I really love this approach, and just thinking about it really helps me kind of think about marketing in a little bit different way in terms of just really making sure, my friend Allison Pereira talks about how marketing is really just helping potential clients find you and to be able to connect with you. And so I love that this fits in just really, really great with that. Tell folks, I want to be mindful of your time, Holly, but tell folks a little bit more about your business and also how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah. So I think, the therapist folks will be really like this, that my main focus in my business is helping business owners align their business growth with their personal growth. Mm-hmm. So I think that when we start our businesses, we embark on probably the most intense personal growth experience we will have. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you don't even realize, like, when you become an entrepreneur, it's like a whole other ball game, and you really have to grow personally in order to have success. And what happens is that as you go through that really fast personal evolution, your business doesn't always keep up, or your business is growing and you wake up and realize this isn't really what I wanted to be doing. Like, I thought this was what I wanted, but really it's not fitting my lifestyle. Or maybe, like, I know for me, I had as most people do, a lot changed when I had my kids. Like, I had my business before I had kids, and then I became a mom and kind of came to the realization that what I was building wasn't what I wanted anymore. Mm-hmm. And to come to terms with that was pretty heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And doing that while also raising an infant, who, admittedly is demanding. Yeah. It was a really hard time, and I went into a pretty deep depression. And so from that, I realized that this is a problem that a lot of business owners have, as they go through some kind of personal transformation and their business needs to catch up. So what I do is I help business owners that are kind of feeling like they're at a plateau. They've reached a certain point in the revenue, they can't get beyond it, or they've had some kind of really big life-changing experience and their business no longer fits. Mm-hmm. And we kind of figure out where do you go from here? What is next for you? Whether it be that next revenue milestone, whether it be, getting rid of that burnout and stop trading time for dollars. Like, what does it look like? And then bringing everything into alignment with that. So your messaging, your marketing, your business model, your packages. So really taking a holistic and integrated approach to business, and kind of integrating, you and your business together. Right. That's what I'm focused on now. And it's a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah. And that's a huge realization. And that, the longer I do this, the more it changes. I mean, it's just where I am now in my practice, and what I'm doing with the practice of therapy isn't at all what I envisioned it to be when I first started, but it's great. I've loved the journey, and just kind of the change in expectations. And it's a wonderful, wonderful trip. So yeah. Right. Yeah. So tell folks how they can get in touch with you, Holly, if they want to find out more about you and the services you offer.
So the best place to find me is on my website at hollychantal.com. So it's pretty easy. And if you're finding that you're in a place where, that you could be much more successful than where you're at. Like, you have the skills, you have the abilities, you have the passion, and things just aren't really working the way you wish they were. I definitely love to talk to you and kind of help you figure out, where the blind spot is. And alternatively, I also have a quiz that'll help you called the Business Blind Spot Quiz. So the website for that is just businessblindspotquiz, all one word, .com.
Okay.
And what that'll do is just ask you some questions about your business and what you're experiencing, and give you kind of next steps on, or help you pinpoint where the blind spot is, and then next steps on what you can do to solve it.
Okay, great. And we'll have all these links in the show summary and the show notes, so people can easily access that. So, well, Holly, I'm so glad that you connected with me, and so glad that we got to know each other and have this conversation. It's great to find people out there that are kind of like-minded and have that entrepreneurial spirit and just doing what we're doing. And I appreciate what you're doing to help those of us that are working through all of this stuff.
Yeah, likewise. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's great. So again, thanks for being here, Holly, and we'll hopefully talk to you again here soon. Well, again, I'm so grateful to Holly for having joined me on the podcast. It's always great to me to find like-minded people and people that just kind of think in the same way. I really love Holly's approach to marketing and really thinking about how you get your message out there. And I really do think it comes from a place of genuineness and being able to know yourself well and know which clients you best connect with so that they can connect with you, and then being able to package that message in such a way that it really resonates with your ideal client. So again, thanks to Holly for joining me today on this episode. Do want to remind you to take a look at today's sponsor, if you will. I'm using sponsor in air quotes, of the Practice of Therapy paperwork packet. Haven't talked about it much on the podcast, but decided to do a flash sale of the paperwork packet. It continues to be one of my most popular resources that's available for download. And if you'll use the coupon code podcast93, you can get the paperwork packet through the end of August of 2019 for just $75. So take advantage of that. There's there's like 20 different things included in that, and all of the forms are customizable to your practice. And the most important forms, the consents and all that sort of thing, have been attorney vetted. A friend of mine that's an attorney took a look at them for me and said they were okay. As always check with your local people as well to make sure that they fit local laws and that sort of thing. But again, it takes the work out of it for you and gives you a starting place with all of that, so you don't have to spend the hours that I did early on in putting all the forms together. So you can get to that at practiceoftherapy.com/paperwork. And that way you can get access to the paperwork packet. Also, keep an eye and ear out for the upcoming webinar that Julie Harris and I are going to be doing on September the 13th. If you haven't done so already, be sure to go over to the Practice of Therapy and subscribe to the newsletter there. And that way you'll get the free Private Practice Startup Guide as just a gift for giving me your email address. And that way you'll be on the list to receive more information about the webinar once we get the details worked out and the title worked out. But again, it's going to be on how to the financial side of private practice. And also, just real quickly, if you're interested in joining my next mastermind group, again, I'm going to be starting that up in September, and love to have you apply. And maybe we'll have just so many people apply that we'll have to have 2 different groups, but I'm going to keep the groups small, and that way you get the attention and we get to know each other and can develop some bonds and camaraderie through that group. I just love being in those kinds of groups, and I love being able to lead them. So go check that out. And that's over at practiceoftherapy.com/mastermind. And as always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. So take care, folks, and I hope you have a good rest of your week or weekend whenever you might be listening to this. And again, thanks for joining me on this. I'm having a great time, if you can't tell. Been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.